I was standing in a J. Crew store in San Francisco, and I was buying a pair of plaid madras pants, like the summer light plaid pants. And the kid at the counter looked at me, and I was trying to grow my hair out like I had when I was 25. I had really long hair when I was 25, and I was trying to grow it out again. And I looked like Krusty the Clown. Like thinning on top and long hair is not a good look. And the kid at the counter looked at me and he said, "Why are you buying the pants?" Because clearly they weren't fucking for a 42-year-old with trying to, I said, "I don't know, maybe a midlife crisis." And the kid looks at me and he goes, "Dude, buy the Porsche, not the pants."
Men are being lied to. You're told midlife is a time for crisis and struggle. In reality, it's a time to thrive. Welcome to the Midlife Male podcast, a show that stops focusing on the why and shows you how to start living life on your terms. Because your best days are still ahead. Welcome to the Midlife Male podcast. I am your host, Greg Scheinman. This week, joining me, Mr. Cameron Herold. Cameron has been an incredible inspiration to me over the years, starting with his best-selling book, Vivid Vision, which changed my life and was ultimately the impetus for my MAP, the Midlife Action Plan, which brings us here today. He is the CEO Whisperer. He is the author of 6 books. He runs the COO Alliance. He is a vagabond along with his wife, traveling the world, experiencing, embracing curiosity, and living his biggest and best life in middle age, I might add. So let's get to it this week on the Midlife Male podcast with Cameron Herold. All right, let's talk about the plunge. I love my plunge. This is a high quality, great looking, high performance cold plunge. It uses powerful cooling, filtration, and sanitation to give you a perfectly chilled, clean water experience with no ice needed. And look, I don't know who's going to tell you that they love sitting in freezing cold water. I'm not going to tell you that, but what I can tell you is that I love how I feel when I get out of sitting in cold water. So much so that it has become a daily habit. The plunge is the best product that I have found out there for this experience. It is easy. You flip the lid. There is no ice needed. The chiller keeps the water set to exactly what temperature you want it at. I've had mine for years, and it is extremely low maintenance. If you are looking to maximize middle age, if you are looking to bring cold therapy into your life, and you should be, go get a plunge. Go to plunge.com, and when you're there, use promo code MidlifeMale and save. Sisu saunas. I am in my Sisu sauna pretty much every day of the week. I have the 2-person Eddy barrel model. They make multiple sizes, whichever Sisu sauna you go with. Rest assured, you are getting a quality product, a quality build, and quality performance. Cardiovascular health, autoimmune chronic pain and fatigue conditions, mental health, exercise performance and metabolism, detoxification. Those are 5 of the reasons I am in my Sisu sauna. And they work because when I get out of my Sisu sauna, I simply feel better, happier, and healthier. And you can too. Just go to sisulifestyle.com, use promo code MidlifeMale, and you'll save on your own Sisu sauna. All right, guys, it is another week. It is another episode of the Midlife Male podcast. I could not be more excited this week to have Cameron Herold joining me on the show. Cameron, welcome.
Greg, I could not be happier to still be midlife. I'm pushing 58 right, or I am 58 right now. So I don't know when I become a senior. I think it's 65. So I got a few more years left of being midlife and enjoying it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, but I'm actually curious then, as you say that, what you think midlife is. Like, what do you think that range is?
Well, it's interesting. What it used to mean and what I think it means now are very different. My brother, by the way, has gone to the Worlds for long drive 3 times, and the Worlds seniors starts at 55. So whenever he goes anywhere, he goes, "I'm a senior." And they're like, "Dude, you're too young to be a senior." And he pulls out his seniors world golf card. And he gets he gets discounts at the movies and discounts everywhere with his seniors card. I'm like, "You're so full of it. That's ridiculous." I went to a doctor when I was 42, and my doctor said something about, "Oh, it happens to everybody in midlife." I'm like, "Don't ever call me midlife." And I was really nervous about approaching a phase that it felt older to me. But now, as I'm kind of squarely in the middle of it, I don't feel old at all. In fact, I remember even chatting with my grandfather when he was 96, and I said, how old are you? And he said, I don't feel as old as you look. And that was about 15 years ago, and I looked older. I was trying to grow my hair out because I was clearly in a midlife crisis. I was 43. I weighed 40 pounds heavier than I am right now. I wasn't happy. I was trying to eat my way back to happiness. I wasn't exercising. I'm probably in the best shape, the best mindset, the best growth stage, and probably the happiest I've ever been at 58 years old. So I'm kind of digging this whole midlife thing. But then I guess to answer your question, what would I say is midlife? Probably pushing out to 75 now. I think I would have used to call it out to 65, but 75 definitely doesn't feel old when I see a lot of 75-year-olds out skiing. I think when I have to quit skiing, I think when I have to quit, doing long hikes, when I can only go for a walk in the park, I can't go hiking in the mountains. I think then I become a senior, right? When I can no longer be, when I have to take a golf cart, I can't walk the golf course. I think then I become a senior, but I think that's probably my frame right now is midlife as well. You can still be very active should you choose to be healthy, right? Where a lot of people give up way too early.
Spot on. So we first met back at an EO speaking engagement. You were the keynote speaker at EO Houston.
Yeah.
It has to be 5-6 years ago, I think,
Yeah.
at this point. And I know you probably don't remember me because you do so many of these. Okay?
But I'll tell you what's funny is the first time I spoke to EO Houston was 2007, and I was squarely in midlife crisis in 2007. I was just leaving 1-800-GOT-JUNK and desperately unhappy in my first marriage and was starting to gain the weight, was drinking a lot, wasn't exercising. And so I'm a different human than when I met you. I was probably at a pretty good stage, but I'm way better now. But go ahead.
No, I want to get into all that because the irony is I wasn't there in 2006. And when we did meet, I think I was much closer to where you were probably when you were starting, maybe from the outside looking in, not as much, but I was unhappy with where I was in my career. I was definitely still drinking, too much. Yeah, I was exercising and doing everything, but I just wasn't in a great spot. And it was the first, and I was invited actually as a guest. And I think it's because my friend who was the EO member kind of sensed that this talk about vivid vision and what you were getting into would be something that would really land with me. And not only, did it, but I got to tell you, your book changed my entire life. The talk that you gave, and then not only getting your book, reading the book, and I've probably since bought about 100 copies of the book and have sent them to friends and clients and everybody. It really was a time for me to take the book, and such a great and quick read, quite frankly. I was so inspired to write my own vivid vision. It's really become the roadmap, what I now call the midlife action plan, for myself. And I'm on my second and going on third iteration because some other things have happened and come true that I'm messing with the 3-year period a little bit.
Well, what's really interesting is that's really why I wrote my first personal vivid vision, was because it was kind of that midlife action plan. I had never written one for myself. I'd used them for 20 years in businesses, writing these 3 or 4 page, 5-page descriptions of my company 3 years out, but I'd never done one for my life. And then a year and a half ago, my wife wrote one for our marriage together. But the one that I wrote for me, the Cameron Herold Vivid Vision, it now is coming to the end of its first 3 years because it's December 31st, 2024. I wrote it 2.5 years ago. It really inspired me to make some very serious cognizant changes. It also inspired me to open up some discussions with my wife about things that were important to me. It also forced me to really look in the mirror and call myself on my bullshit, and also have friends call me on my bullshit. And I think it was a pretty formative stage for me in my growth. So I'm glad that you saw that, because I don't think I realized at the time how formative it was going to be, but it's become huge for me.
Look, it was huge for me. And I got to tell you, the responses that I've gotten from people, and I know you must have thousands now at this point, were just like, hey man, thank you for sending this to me. This book really changed my life, because I do think that it does force you in a way, in a very positive way, to sit down and take that look in the mirror and put pen to paper, or however you want to express it, out there, and get it down. Because without a plan, a lot of us guys, and I was this too, rudderless. You could be doing all the quote unquote right things in a way, but in the aggregate, a lot of shit's going wrong and you don't feel like it's really great.
Or if you've got the plan, but you don't have the vision, so you don't know why it fits, right? A lot of people have goals, but they're not aligned with something. They're not aligned with something they can share. And maybe they have something circulating in their mind, but when you write, so my personal vivid vision, just for anybody who hasn't written one or read one, describes me as a dad, probably a quarter of a page, describes me as a father, about a quarter of a page, describes me as a lover, as a friend, it describes me in my fitness, describes me in my health, describes me in relationships, sexuality, travel, vacations. I really think about every aspect of me as a human, and I write down, and it's a 4-page description. Like, it talks about my relationships with my kids, myself, my self-growth. And it's interesting that the more people I share that with, the more inspired I become. And then the more real my plans become, the more real my goals become, because they're attached to something greater. And I just reread my personal vivid vision a week ago. I'm rereading the one that my wife and I wrote this week, because she and I are going off on a retreat, going to a full detox and health cleanse for a full week. So it's a great time for us to sit and talk about our vivid vision for our relationship. But yeah, it's revisiting that. Starts to provide, I guess, some excitement and some tension towards the goals, instead of just goals being kind of random. And you can't walk away from the goals either. When you share your vivid vision with the world, when you share it with your friends, your family, your spouse, my kids have read mine. My 21 and 23-year-old boys have read my personal vivid vision a few times. So they understand why I'm making the decisions I'm making in life.
Which I think is so important, this notion of sharing it, because too often we keep things to ourselves, or, maybe we're embarrassed of how we're feeling or where we're at, or maybe even where we want to go. And I think
leverage that embarrassment, right? Let's call out that embarrassment and call yourself on your own bullshit. But to hide behind that embarrassment and then try to drink it away or smoke it away or eat it away or watch more movies like that, you're wasting your life. Right? Anybody who feels that shame or embarrassment, good, but start the change today.
I think you nailed it right there. And I think a lot of us get to that. And again, I did this too, kind of get to that moment or a series of moments. And for me, I think it was a culmination of a number of moments. I got to mine called 47. I turned 47. It's the 10-year anniversary with my firm. It's the age that my father passed away. I've got my marriage. I've got the kids. I've got everything. And it's like, wait a minute, I could squander this, or I could pour some rocket fuel on it and really turn some things around. But where I got stuck was in the how, until I learned about the vivid vision. Like, I get all the why. Why you want to be in better shape, why you want to be a better father, put the drinks down, all the how is what was fucking me up. And I think it does for a lot of guys too. So I'm curious if you would, because you've mentioned your own midlife crisis. You mentioned 2006 and where you were. And I'm curious how you got there, but even more importantly, how you got out of there.
Wow. Okay. So how I got to 2006, 2007, and it's funny, I'll tell you where it was when it first dawned on me that I was having this midlife crisis. I was standing in a J. Crew store in San Francisco, and I was buying a pair of plaid madras pants, like the summer light plaid pants. And the kid at the counter looked at me, and I was trying to grow my hair out like I had when I was 25. I had really long hair when I was 25. And I was trying to grow it out again. And I looked like Krusty the Clown. Like thinning on top and long hair is not a good look. And the kid at the counter looked at me and he said, "Why are you buying the pants?" Because clearly they weren't fucking for a 42-year-old with trying to, I said, "I don't know, maybe a midlife crisis." And the kid looks at me and he goes, "Dude, buy the Porsche, not the pants." I was like, yeah, if I'm going to have a midlife crisis, I may as well buy the really nice car. But I didn't want to buy the nice car. But what it called me on is it made me look in the mirror and I was like, I don't like who I see. I don't like this guy who's trying to become something he's not. And it began the journey of me trying to figure out who I was. I went to Burning Man that summer for my first time. I've been to Burning Man 6 times. That was the summer of 2007. I went 4 years in a row. And it showed me that I was in a very unhappy marriage. I knew on the wedding day that it was wrong. But I was a different person. I didn't have the confidence. We had kids right away. I'm very thankful that we ended up having the kids, and my ex-wife and I have a great relationship together as co-parents. It's fantastic. But I just realized that I was desperately unhappy and I wanted something different. I wanted something more. And I wasn't willing to just throw my life away with that forever. And so I had to leave the marriage, but also make sure that I honored her as my mom of my kids, and that I would always speak nicely of her to my kids, and that I would always look at the good. But I also needed to then go off and do my thing. And that began starting to work out with a trainer, really, really cutting back on, well, I quit smoking, cutting back on eating crap. I weighed 42 pounds heavier than I do today. And if I pulled up a photo of you, you'd laugh at the photo and how bad I looked. But so I just began the journey of getting healthier. And then I think that really kicked into gear about 2 years ago when I wrote The Vivid Vision. My weight dropped even further. Now I'm down to 182 pounds from my 222. 11 months ago, I quit drinking. I had gone for about 5 years. I was doing 1 month every year without drinking and 1 week every month to prove that I didn't have a problem. What I proved was I have a lot of willpower, but I was drinking too much. I was drinking for no reason. I was drinking because I wasn't happy. Certainly wasn't drinking to give me anything. I was grabbing a bottle of wine off the wine rack, and it was always a bottle, never more than a bottle of red wine, but it was always a full bottle every day for about 6 years. And then finally, I'm like, it was like every day was like $100 bottle, $140. I didn't even care what it was. They were literally like, I was just grabbing a bottle, opening it up. I'm like, this is stupid. So quitting that, recommitting to health. I'm working out with a personal trainer. I'm going to my trainer again today. I probably work out with trainer 4 days a week now. I'm just healthier. I'm happier. I've got a better mindset. I openly talk about my problems. I work with not psychiatrists, with like therapists or counselors or coaches. I'm working with a somatic sex coach. I've got like my wife and I are doing all the work. And it's because it's exciting to do the work. It's no longer, I used to feel like doing the work meant I had a problem. It was like going to a tutor when I was in grade 8. I felt like there was something wrong with me. Now I'm excited about doing the work because I realize I'm growing. It's not, I'm not doing the work because I'm broken. I'm doing the work because I get to grow, because I get to have a more exciting life. I get to have a richer relationships. I get to have, richer communication with myself and my spouse and my kids. And that's exciting to me now. Like doing the work now feels exciting. That was a big shift for me.
What cost did this come at? Meaning, you're at a position where you were successful also, even while you were doing all of those things, you were success. Was this, when a lot, look at guys thinking about making changes again or at these spots. And I hear from guys too, and I'm sure you have, I'm going to lose my friends, or I've been playing poker with these guys forever, Wow.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You can see anybody who's not listening or watching, you should be watching. I just showed a picture. It cost me relationships with friends. It cost me relationships with my kids. There was a stage with my kids where I was doing cocaine at home by myself, hiding from issues by myself. What the fuck am I doing cocaine at home for? Like, I don't even do it anymore. I don't even go near the shit, but I was doing it as an escape. I was eating food and I wasn't happy. I was breaking bones. I broke my shoulder, broke my wrist, broke my finger, all in different skiing accidents, had an MCL issue. Because here I am trying to ski like I did when I was racing, when I was 21. At 45 and 50, 45 and 46, 47, I was breaking things. And then I was missing entire ski seasons with my kids. So it hurt my time with my kids, hurt my time with my friends, hurt my time with myself. I didn't have honest relationships with friends. I was out for breakfast earlier this week with a friend of mine, Ken Sim, who's now the mayor in Vancouver. And I remember sitting with Ken in Vancouver. We talked about it the other day, about 15 years ago. And he said, "How are you doing?" I go, "I'm good. I'm good." And I went, "Actually, no, I'm full of shit. I'm really sad. I'm really, really sad in my marriage." And I finally had the first discussion. So it cost me relationships. It cost me deeper relationships. It cost me years of just being unhappy and kind of going through the motions. So I missed opportunities to enjoy life and have fun and go do shit. It cost me like in so many areas. I've never even thought about that, but yeah, the costs were huge.
Did the money
we only
matter?
get one life, right? Like none of us are getting out of this alive, so we may as well enjoy the journey. I certainly was not enjoying the journey.
Did the money matter? Did you wait until did you quit your job when you decided to do it, or did you stay and just change yourself? That's another thing that comes up. A lot of guys that want to change, they can't just quit, So
No,
they're
yeah,
just
you
like,
can. Actually, you can. You fucking can, because like you actually, your great 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 grandparents quit and just moved to North America. So yes, you can. You can sell your house. You can move into a condo. You can quit your shitty job and go somewhere else. You can move to another city. You actually can. No one is handcuffing you to anything unless you're seeing a dominatrix. And we did that, my wife and I, last year. That was kind of cool. It's a bucket list experience. No one is handcuffing you to your shit except you. So yeah, you can quit your shitty whatever.
mm,
You can. Like,
okay. Can we talk about how you do that then and how you make a plan for it?
and yeah, so I already had the money. I already had, like, I was struggling inside of anything I already had.
So you were able to work through it in
Yeah.
there. And then you started to take these steps.
Well, now we're really working through it. So my wife and I sold everything 3 years ago. We sold my home in Arizona, sold her home, sold my home in Vancouver, sold our cars, sold our furniture. I only own 2 pair of jeans and a pair of beige pants. I own 3 long sleeve shirts. I own 1 golf shirt. Like, I could tell you my entire wardrobe. Um, we sold everything so that we can travel and live globally. We sold everything because we want to go explore the world and go grow and go have all these amazing experiences. So we're literally crossing off bucket list items every couple of weeks by
Mm.
choice.
So what's on? Okay. So right now you're in Vancouver and I've
Yeah.
been following you around kind of around the globe.
Yeah.
And so walk me through also the creation of the bucket list, how you decide, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go be these kind of this nomadic lifestyle right now. We can afford to do it a certain way. And here's how we put the bucket list together. But you also live, I guess, maybe normal is not the right word, but it's like I also see like you get up and you go to the gym and you do like within these travels and everything too. So
Yeah.
it's not, and it's certainly not minimalist. You may only have like a certain amount of clothes with you, but it's kind of like this maximalist lifestyle, but with minimalist application. If
Yeah,
that's
we don't have a lot of stuff, but we're definitely ripping the cover off the ball in terms of life. So I chose to come back to Vancouver to spend some time with my 2 boys, one who is 23 and my other one is 21, flew home from Montreal. I wanted to spend time with my kids kind of at this stage. So I made a cognizant choice to come and hang out here again. My wife went and spent some time in Bali and gives us some time apart so we can come back and reconnect. And we wrote about that in our shared vivid vision, that when we travel together and we do breakfast, lunch, and dinner together 7 days a week for almost 3 years, we need to have some space apart as normal humans do, right? What are some things that we do to make sure that we have, I guess, a great life in the midst of it all? We put important things into our calendar. So right now we've put 4 or 5 really big events into our calendar over the next 4 months. We're going to a very bougie Burning Man kind of party in July in Montenegro. We're going to the Health Optimization Summit, which is a big biohacking summit in London, England in May. We're going to Dave Asprey's Biohacking Summit in Dallas. We're going to another kind of biohacking and health and life summit in Ibiza called Intelligent Change. We're going to an entrepreneur's kind of experience in Laos and Cambodia with Mike Brisick. So we put those into our calendars as these big experiential things. And then we put things into our calendar that are important to us. So we're looking to buy a place in probably northern Italy and a place in Dubai as our 2 kind of hubs. I'm now resident of Dubai and my company is based in Dubai for tax purposes. I'm Canadian, so I don't get taxed on worldwide income. But we're looking to buy a place in northern Italy. So this summer we're spending a lot of time in Italy, going around these areas in Lake Garda and Verona, just to kind of get to know the areas and see if we can find our place. So that's cognizant. We decided that we wanted to spend a bunch of time with some entrepreneurs and really kind of immerse ourselves in an entrepreneurial community. So this summer we're spending 6 weeks in Kelowna in British Columbia, in kind of this Canadian hub of technology entrepreneurs that we're friends with, that are all active and doing cool shit and have good relationships. So it's like Dan Martell and Nick Kuzmich and Matt Bertulli and like all these really cool, fun kind of entrepreneurs there. So we're going to go spend some time there. So when we put all that in our calendar, then we put stuff into our calendar around personal growth. So we work with a sex coach, we work with a relationship coach, we work with a health coach. We're going to a health cleanse next week in Palm Desert, where we're doing a full digital detox. So no iPhones, no laptops for 7 days. We're doing a full cleanse, a full body cleanse. We invest in ourselves in terms of nutrition. So we use continuous glucose monitors. We I got my blood panels done. We work with, doctors to prescribe us with the proper supplements and vitamins. So we're spending time and energy and money around that. And then we put things like our trainers into our calendar. So I have 3 personal training sessions this week out of the 5 days that I'm here before I head to Palm Desert. I want to make sure that I really rip it hard with this trainer this week to kind of go into this session feeling good. And then I plan my work around that, right? So I don't let my company and my time with my business dictate things. I let my life become the big rocks in my calendar, and then I delegate everything except genius in my companies, and I work on the stuff that feeds me with energy.
Does it ever get to a point where it feels like it's too much? Like even the fact that you're choosing all of these things and you've built it by design,
No.
it's still a lot. I mean, it's a lot that you're taking on.
Yeah, the stuff that's a lot. So here's what's a lot. I think in the last 3 years, we've been to 49 countries together. So that means that we've had to find some of those countries, we've been to multiple cities, but let's just call it 49 countries. Okay. Pretend it was only 1 city per country, but it's not. That means we had to find 49 new gyms, 49 new yoga studios, 49 trainers, 49 grocery stores, find our way around 49 grocery stores, 49 new coffee shops, 49 new cool, fun restaurants we like. And then we have to pack our stuff up and do it again. Like we had to do that 49 times in 3 years. That's hard. But I think for me, what is harder is remembering the boredom of life, of just working all day and then working at night to catch up when I was never catching up anyway, and then just eating chips and ice cream and watching poker on television. And that was like every fucking day for years. That was hard. Hard was getting into injuries and accidents when I was trying to ski, or hard was just, not being engaged in life and being excited and being happy. And hard was being a victim. That was hard.
I think there's a lot to that. I think there's this notion of getting to choose your hard, that people are living a hard life. They're complaining about where they're at. Maybe they don't like where they're at, all of these things as you're describing. And, then they look at somebody who is working out all the time or traveling or doing all this, and they think that that's too hard.
No, because I had the same amount of money 10 years ago as I do today, approximately. Like I had the private golf clubs and the private tennis club and the Tesla Model S P90D 8 years ago. Like I had all the trappings. I was drinking, like I was literally deglazing pans with $120 bottles of Burgundy. I'd pull out like it didn't fucking matter, right? And in a restaurant, those are $250 bottles of wine. Like I'm literally drinking some of the best wine like it's tap water, stupidly. But I wasn't happy. So it doesn't come with money. It comes with a mindset, right? And it also comes with, I wrote about this when Hal Elrod and I co-authored The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs together, that don't beat yourself up when you start on a journey and you fail the next day or you fail a month later. Don't stop, right? Just pick yourself up and try again tomorrow. So I still have shitty days. I still have days that I feel like, oh, maybe this isn't it, or maybe this is hard, or maybe this isn't whatever. But I don't stop. I'm like, well, that blip sucked, so I'll start again tomorrow,
I think that's a big point, that people tend to look at outcomes. And yes, you can write the vivid vision, and yes, you can reverse engineer back to the steps you need to take quarterly, monthly, weekly, down to the daily, but they get obsessed with the outcome and they miss so much of the journey in between, and how important it is to realize that there are going to be missteps along the way.
Totally.
That this stuff takes a lot of time, that every country you visit may not be the greatest experience. That Airbnb, that trainer, that coffee shop may not be the best one, but we're out there doing right now, and we're trying, and we're on this continuous forward progress that we're trying to make.
Yeah. And I think it's about deciding to have control over your life and deciding to have control. Like it's just making decisions, right? It's setting those goals. So it's interesting. You kind of latched onto the fact that we share our vivid vision, because we share the one that we wrote as a couple too. For me, the SMART goal, the S stands for shared. And the reason I like S is for sharing is when you share a goal with someone, when you share your vision with someone, you can't back out anymore. Like when you tell someone you're doing something, it's hard for you to back away from that, but it's easy to lie to yourself, right?
Completely agree. Look, I carry mine around with me at this point. Like I print it out, carry it around with me. And whenever I'm having that off day, or if you, I'll pop it open, and look at it and say, okay, here's the map, here's the compass of where I'm going. Am I doing the things, you talk about goals a lot. One of the things that's helped me is, look, I think goals are great, or even the word goals are great, but what's really helped me even more impactfully is setting standards. Goals seem big and sometimes far away. Whereas once I wrote the vivid vision, I kind of backed into, well, what is the minimum standard that I need to uphold each day in order to make this vision a reality?
Right. And every sentence becomes kind of a future state that you have to hold yourself to that, right? It's like, oh, I can't do that because I'm lying to myself now.
Correct. If I plan the hike, now the hike could be 16, 24 weeks away. My next one's not until September. And you've got to back into, well, the standard is here's how much I need to train for that in order to be able to complete the hike by this time.
Right.
And either I uphold the standard or I don't. And if I don't uphold the standard, then the goal is not going to become a reality because I'm going to fail miserably and not make the 36 hours or whatever it might be to get this done. And the standard
so you talk about hiking as an example. Hiking was something that my wife and I both realized we both wanted to actively do. So it went into our bucket list that we talk in. Hikes is mentioned in my personal one and in our couples one. So now we go hiking with friends. We chose to go to Bhutan to go hiking and live in monasteries with the monks. We chose to go to Patagonia and go hiking in northern Patagonia and hike a volcano. We're making active choices to go and do these things. That's because we decided what our life was going to be like, instead of and so many people just waste day after day and hour after hour watching television or watching the sports. And like, is that really what's making you happy? Maybe it is, but is that really what you want your story to be for you at the end of your life? Right.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think there's also a lot of white space between I want to go hiking and I also have to go to Patagonia or Mont Tremblant where we're going, or other, certain things that it's like, look, you can start by taking a drive upstate or something. You can start by climbing the stairs and work instead of taking it. Like all of these things in terms of, again, thinking that it doesn't always have to be grandiose. It doesn't always have to be expensive. Yeah.
I said that to my son the other day when we were driving around Vancouver. I said, what's amazing about living in a city like a Vancouver or a Kelowna is you can actually have an incredible life without spending a penny. You can go hike 20 hikes that are within a 15-minute drive of here or a bus ride of wherever you are in Vancouver, because we live in the mountains. Way better than Seattle. Like we were in Seattle for the weekend and you can see the mountains right in front of you in Vancouver. You need a sunny day to see them in Seattle. You can go walking along the ocean. You can go kayaking in the ocean. You can go riding a bicycle everywhere. You can walk. Like Vancouver is a beautiful place. Some people live in shitty cities. Move. By the way, Mont Tremblant is spectacular. My other son goes to school in Montreal, goes skiing at Mont Tremblant. I've skied at Mont Tremblant. I've hiked to the top of Tremblant. It's an incredible place. You'll love it.
I can't wait. We're doing it in September. Last year we did Whistler. So we flew into Vancouver.
Amazing.
And loved Vancouver, and then took the drive to Whistler and
did that. Gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous. Loved it. Loved everything from the seaplanes landing, on the waterway to the drive all the way up to Whistler to the entire experience in Whistler, which was fantastic. But to
By the way,
point,
you asked about my bucket list and I missed over that. So what on my bucket list is to take both of my boys up in a float plane and up in a helicopter. And I only have to take one of my kids up in a float plane now. The other one's done helicopter and float plane. My one son's done helicopter, but it's in writing to get them both up in those to have that experience. Flying in a float plane up to Whistler was an incredible experience. Mm-hmm. I'd always wanted to fly up there. And then I was coaching the leadership team from Hootsuite, and Ryan Holmes flew me up to Whistler and I got to land in a float plane at Whistler. But when you think as a person, what are the places you want to go, experiences you want to have, cities to go to, countries to go to, things to try, something to learn, you can end up with a very long list of stuff that doesn't require you to leave your city. It also doesn't have to require you to spend money. During COVID, I got into geocaching. When you use an app on your phone and you go find these hidden treasures, and they're hidden all over every city, and you go and do this exploring, and you have to follow all these weird instructions. You have to find this little hidden treasure. And I was doing those with my son during COVID. That doesn't cost you any money, but it was fun to go explore. And then I kind of crossed that off. I was like, well, I did like 20 geocaches in Vancouver. I'm not going to go see the rest of the thousands that are there. What's my next adventure, fun thing I'm going to do?
Look, I think the aspect of quality of life and putting yourself in environments where, again, the cost is zero. It's only what it is that you want to do and can you do it. Our older son is in Boulder right now, chose to go to CU and be in Boulder, like from a quality of life standpoint, the ability to hike and to snowboard and to be in that environment in any direction you go. I think the game has changed.
Well, and we can also choose to let's go away from the bucket list for a second and talk about some of the other midlife crisis. Maybe you can work on I'll talk about some specific things I've done to grow. I worked on anger and getting angry and snapping too quickly. So I went and worked with a coach and read books and listened to podcasts. Now I'm working on polarity and bringing more polarity into our relationship. I've worked around issues around sexuality. I've worked around setting goals. I've worked around fitness. I've worked around nutrition. I've read lots of stuff around sleep. So there's lots of things that you can do to have a growth mindset as a human that don't cost a lot of time and money. YouTube and podcasts, there's so many of these things that are free that you can devour content around and go explore that don't require you to spend money or even go do active things. Like maybe you don't want to go start hiking. That's cool. But maybe you just want to be a better lover or a better friend or a better dad or a better communicator, or be more vulnerable, or learn how to play guitar. Like there's all kinds of, or learn a language, or start pottery, or start cooking. Like you have to make food every day anyway. Maybe just make better food, or maybe make healthier food. And it doesn't cost you money to go buy good food. And in fact, sometimes good food is cheaper than shitty food.
No doubt. What I'm curious about in hearing this, and where I've struggled, and one of the concepts that I talk about a lot is this ACE concept, this aggregate, curate, and eliminate, which is, there's so much noise out there right now. There's so much, how do you aggregate from everything that's out there? And even all of these areas that you described, kind of curate it down to what works for you, and maybe even eliminate what doesn't. I'm curious because a lot of what you're talking about is choices that are out here, and how I'm curious about how you make your choices, who to follow, who to listen to, what to go to.
Well, I guess it depends on what you're into or wanting to learn about at that time. So right now it's around polarity in relationships. So how do you bring more polarity in? So now I'm asking people, mentioning it. They're like, oh, you should read this book, or, oh, you should listen to this podcast. So when you're talking about what you're interested in, other people start to kind of line up around that, right? You have to remain interested to remain interesting. And I think if all you talk about is work, you're fucking boring, right? No one wants to hear about work, and work is not your hobby. Nobody wants to hear about your hobby. If it's, being a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer or accountant or running a company, nobody cares. But they do care about, if you're talking about eating healthier food, they'll be, oh, I found this cool recipe, or I'm wanting to learn how to manage this or learn about that. Oh, people will talk about that. So talk about what you're interested in, and the dots start to line up for you.
Do you have an opening question? Like for that, like, do you have a way that you approach your curiosity? Like I've got a friend and he always leads with, hey, what do you do for fun? As opposed to what do you do for a living? Because again, he's not fucking interested in what, most people just do for a living.
Well, yeah, I'll flip that for you. As when someone asks, what do? I don't answer them, or I'll fuck with them and I'll say, I like hiking and travel and cooking food. And they'll be like, oh, I mean, for money, like, what do you do to make money? I'm like, yeah, I don't talk about that. And then I go right back into what my hobbies are. Like, I don't want to talk about the boring shit in life. I refuse. So that's why we're going to these business events. Like these events that we're going to this summer are going to be filled with entrepreneurs, but they're not there just talking about their business. It's filled with these entrepreneurs and very successful people that care about life and lifestyle and health. So the Health Optimization Summit is like probably one of the biggest biohacking summits in the world. And so Tim Gray runs this. It's incredible. We're going to Dave Asprey, who built Bulletproof Coffee, going to his biohacking conference in Dallas. Again, it'll be filled with very successful people who care about health, and they care about relationship, and they care about themselves, kind of realizing that Latin phrase, the mens sana in corpore sano, it's the healthy mind and a healthy body. So it's when we surround ourselves with those people, our discussions get easier. No one sits and talks about work. I went to the main 5-day TED conference, 11 years. No one talks about work there because no one cares about work there. So when you surround yourself with people that have interests and have hobbies and have, are doing more in life, they don't talk about work. It's when you're around yourself with people that are in low vibration, that don't have anything else to talk about, that they default into fucking boring. Like they actually don't care what you do for work. They just don't know what else to talk about. I'm like exit stage right.
Okay. Transitioning then, you do a lot of work with COOs in the COO Alliance. You've picked this second in command, and these are guys, men and women, they're working, and the work that you do these are working people within companies, and that's in that second role. I'm curious about that also, how you picked that role and kind of that niche to really go hard in the paint with.
So that's what I do to make money, right? So running the COO Alliance is a large community of second in commands. We have members from 17 countries, and I'm growing their skills and their confidence and their connections so they can grow their entrepreneur's company. My core purpose in making money, like why I do what I do, is to help entrepreneurs make their dreams happen. So my Invest in Your Leaders course, my COO Alliance, my group coaching, my speaking, my books, they all help entrepreneurs make their dreams happen. There was a huge gap in the market where there were lots of groups for entrepreneurs like EO and YPO and Vistage and Genius Network and Baby Bathwater and tons of great groups. There was nowhere for that second command. So I just filled that void. But it's not my reason for waking up in the morning. I don't wake up in the morning going, oh gosh, I hope I can help COOs. Like that's what I do when I'm working. But when I'm not working, my focus changes to everything else. Right?
I want to hang there for a second because you say that, like that's a bold statement. And that's like a super confident statement. I think in regards to a lot of people running business would never say what you just said because they think it could hurt the business.
No, but it's because they have no other hobbies and they've gotten fucking boring. Like, look, I was there, right? When I was at the right at the peak of my unhappiness was when I was the COO at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And all I had to think about was work. I didn't think about relationships. I didn't think about my health. I didn't think about friends or hobbies. Christ, my best friend, Brian, was the CEO at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And for 6.5 years, we built the company. We didn't know that the other person loved to ski. How the fuck do we not know that best friends love to ski? Because we didn't talk about anything for 6.5 years other than work. That is not a healthy human. That's not a healthy relationship. And I don't want to go back there. And I don't like it when people lie to themselves and their friends and go, oh, business is my hobby. No, you've lost all of your hobbies. You've lost everything that's enjoyable to you, and you get a dopamine rush off of building your business, but that's not your hobby.
How do you see this whole combination of like personal passion, professional expertise? You have to be passionate about what you do. Do you give a shit about that, or say, no, I just make my money, I can do this, but then I can follow my passions and all these hobbies in these other areas, and my career funds my passions?
I think you have to be passionate about what you're doing whenever you're doing it. So if I'm going to be washing dishes, I'm going to wash them well. If I'm going to be cooking dinner, I'm going to cook it well. If I'm going to be hanging out with friends, I'm going to be present with them. If I'm going to be making money, I'm going to work really, really hard at it. But it's not my everything. My everything is like all of the things combined, right? The problem is so many people lose all of those things. I work with COOs to help them realize that running their CEO's company is not their reason for waking up in the morning. It's what they do to make money. While they do it, they should be absolutely amazing at it. They should try to delegate everything except genius, or they should go work for another company where they're happier. But they also need to have hobbies and relationships with themselves. They need to have some fucking fun. Like one of our core values for the COO Alliance is has some effing fun. So like at one of our last in-person events, we bought onesies for everybody. We dressed them up in onesies. So they all like walked around wearing these stupid animal onesies for the night. They were laughing their asses off. And then we played like 3-legged races and wheelbarrow races and egg tosses, like at a business COO event, because I didn't want them to sit and just talk about work all night long.
So they can be the COO of these companies, but what you're also tasking them with is to become the CEO of their own life. And
of course, and most CEOs aren't even the CEO of their own life, right? Most CEOs are fucking boring. Excuse my language. Most CEOs are boring. But then look at a Richard Branson who chooses to have fun and have hobbies and enjoy life. That's more inspiring than the guy who just goes to work every single day and only talks about work. Like I don't need to give another analogy, but there's lots of entrepreneurs out there who are very businessy, but they also have fun.
How long does it take some of those COOs to go from walking into this situation, maybe thinking it's one thing, to I'm going to put this onesie on and I'm going to buy in, to that?
Well, I do an exercise with all of them. And the exercise started in 2017. I was standing in an event, a COO Alliance event, standing in front of the group, and I realized that I was struggling. My wife had asked me for a divorce a couple days before, and I was really, really struggling with where I was. And I turned to the group and I went, you know what? I'm full of shit. I'm really struggling right now. I'm going through a divorce, or probably going to be going through and I kind of threw it out on the table. And I said, but I know that every single one of you are struggling with something too. So I handed them all a Post-it note. I said, I don't want you to write your name on this, but I want you to write down the one thing that is deeply troubling you right now. Something at home, your relationship with a spouse, with your kids, with your health, with money, whatever. Something that is really you're struggling with, write it down. We all wrote it down. And then I walked around the room and I picked them all up and I shuffled them and I read them out loud. And then I walked them through the fact that every single human is struggling with something. And we need to connect with people at the humanity level to realize we're all just walking each other home. None of us are getting out of this alive. This is just what we do to make money. So I always remind them that this is just what we do to make money. It's not our reason for waking up in the morning. And I would tell that to their CEO. Like, sorry, but CEO, you are wrong. Your COO's job is to help, while they're working, but it is not their reason for being. And it should not be your reason for being either.
As you say that, it just brought back a similar experience that I had. I've spent the last couple of years, similarly in certain ways to you, traveling around, trying different things, trying to execute, on my vivid vision, whether that, and also seeing what other individuals are doing out there, because as you said, coaches, therapists, programs, courses, entrepreneurs, there's all of these things out there, and going, okay, what's really interesting? As somebody who's inherently curious, what's really interesting, and how can I go through these experiences and help share them with other men, hopefully for the benefit of being able to say, look, it's possible and it's probable for you to change, to make these moves, to go in there and here, even if I can help you choose or take the first step or something, just know that it's possible. And you mentioned these Post-its, and I was sitting here, I was going through some old paperwork from the last couple of years of what have I actually done and what were my takeaways. And you held up a picture of yourself, and I found like these were 3 Post-its that I did in an exercise at Chip Conley's Modern Elder Academy a couple of years ago.
Chip spoke at our COO Alliance event that we wore the onesies at. He spoke the day before, the day that we wore the onesies. Chip Conley spoke at that event. So did Warren Rustan spoke that the next day.
Super guy. And he was terrific. And he came on the podcast a couple of years ago. And then I spent a week out in Baja, sort of where he's got the Modern Elder Academy. And as I was going through all these papers, I was like, I found it. I'm like stacking these things up from each and every one of the experiences. But I remember even being there, they give everybody like a word, or we were doing these exercises and we finished the week, and they say things to you. And the word I was given was softening, that I was softening, because I was coming into so much of this stuff guarded with assumptions and judgments and premonitions and the ways that I had done things for 10, 20, 30 years of my life. So how do you go into these things, as you said, with an open mind or a growth mindset when you've spent so much time being guarded or standoffish or thinking things are a certain way and they're really not?
I'll tell you, EO was the first experience for me that being vulnerable was okay and opening up was okay. And the more that I've done that over the last 25, 30 years, I got into EO in 1995. So it's been 30 years of being able to be learning to become more open and vulnerable and growing. Something else that's happened in the last 7, 8, maybe years has been the trend of the use of psychedelic journeys with shaman, ayahuasca. Now we're getting into people talking about ketamine and MDMA and psilocybin, doing it with shaman, doing it in guided exercises, doing it in facilities with doctors. You would have never spoken about a psychedelic drug or microdosing with LSD or microdosing with psilocybin. None of that ever would have been talked about 10, 15 years ago. And now very successful humans are using this as a way to release PTSD, as a way to release and open up the possibility and to see what beauty can be like. And I think that's a really interesting thing, that that some very, very successful people are working on and doing now too. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens as all of these things become legal. Like in British Columbia, every drug has now been decriminalized. Oregon's been decriminalized. Colorado, I think, is decriminalized. But now you can actually go into a doctor's office and have, an MDMA session where you can actually release some of your childhood trauma and release some of your wounds and they can be very powerful experiences. And I think that's something that people are doing that's interesting.
What's been your experience with it? I haven't gone down that path other than noticing and recognizing that there is a trend, like you've alluded to. A lot of successful people that I know very well, have been talking about this more openly in their experiences. And I've kind of put it a little bit on the shelf of like to do a deeper dive and explore in there. But I'm fearful too. I'm apprehensive. I'm fearful. I've never gone down that path before.
They're extraordinary. So we did one ayahuasca journey with some shaman about 4 or 5 years ago. We're going to do another one in Hawaii in July with a shaman over a course of a week. We've done some guided ketamine journeys with a physician in Scottsdale, Arizona, where you go into the physician's office and you do ketamine. We've done MDMA with shaman. We've done psilocybin with shaman. They're extraordinary. And like, my son right now is 23, is struggling with ADD and some OCD and some depression issues. And I talked to his doctor and his case manager a week ago, and they have big beliefs around ketamine for releasing that kind of stuff. Look, we were lied to by the government in a lot of these cases, right? Where look at cannabis is now all of a sudden legal, but for years everybody was like, oh my God, you're going to go to prison if you're caught with a joint. Now all of a sudden it's legal. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of these drugs that were, so bad for us, all of a sudden realizing, well, maybe some of them aren't. Not saying all of them, but maybe some of them aren't, or doing it in the right setting, with the right intention. You're not doing it to, like, you don't take, you don't use something like this and go out and try to party on it. You can use it in a session to try to grow as a human being. And if you do it with a doctor or with a shaman and you do it in the right sessions, it can be very powerful.
I think that's the differentiator. I think that what you're describing is, again, the mindset in which you look at utilization or experimentation with these, as opposed to thinking that, that the drug connotation as a getaway or as an escape or as a party mechanism, where that's not the conversation that's being had surrounding the usage of this.
And unfortunately, most people use alcohol in the wrong way too. Most people use alcohol as an escape, and then they get ugly and sloppy and violent and cause accidents on alcohol. Like, they're using it for the wrong reasons. I think drugs or psychedelics and plant medicines can be used in a very successful, proactive way, but you need to be very conscious about that.
Did you make a conscious decision, speaking of that, like to cut alcohol from your life, or was it just that your life changed to the point where alcohol didn't have a place really anymore?
Well, so Ashley, my wife, had quit alcohol about 3.5 years ago for a conscious decision. She just wasn't making good decisions when she was on it, and realized that it was a very low vibration. It wasn't serving her in any way. It wasn't helping her be happy or healthy. So I was not drinking 1 month out of every year. And it was at the end of my 1 month period, I just decided to keep going for a couple of weeks because there was no reason to be drinking. And then I was like, well, I guess maybe I'll just keep going. And I kept saying I reserve the right to have a drink. And now I don't even think about it. Like, I could be out having the best dinner at a party, whatever. I don't even think about it. I could be around people drinking constantly. It doesn't even occur to me now to have a drink, frankly.
What do you substitute it with?
Water. Just,
I'm just saying, like, I didn't know, do you have like a go-to, like something else that you've replaced with, or it just doesn't matter?
No, I just don't need it. Like, I just don't, I don't wake up in the morning hungover. So now I go to the gym. I don't need it. So I have meaningful discussions because I'm not repeating myself or getting sloppy or slurring my words, or I'm deeper in a conversation because I'm not trying to run away to get the next drink. So I'm staying present in the conversation I'm in.
No, look, I agree. I mean, I've been in the same position where I went from drinking way too much to doing what you said. I can take days off. I can take a week off. I can do this. And then as soon as I hit the number, I would just go right back to it. Now it's just worked its way out of my life, where I just appreciate my morning time. I appreciate being clear-headed more. I appreciate the exercise, all the other things, and I don't recover well from it. So it just doesn't occur to me to do it anymore.
Yeah, no. So my sister-in-law quit drinking about 15, 16 years ago. So I'm now 10 months, 24 days, 4 hours without having a drink, which is kind of cool. I've also saved $19,740 in not
Mm.
drinking, which is a lot of cash. My
Is that an
sister-in-law,
app
though,
that you're using for that?
yeah,
Or
there's an app called I Am Sober.
that's fantastic. I've never seen that before, which I think is really cool. But one of my reasons backing into it, similar as you hold up the number, was I was also just getting really annoyed of these dinner checks being 50 to 100% more just by the virtue of us drinking for no reason.
Yeah, I said to my wife last night, we were chatting, and I said, I've saved $19,000 on something. We can go spend it on other stuff now. Like, I'd rather go spend it on cool stuff versus waking up in the morning hungover. I don't have a problem with investing in our health, in spending money on continuous glucose monitors, spending money on nutrition, spending money on supplements, spending money on trainers, spending money on cleanses. I'd rather spend money on that than spending money on alcohol.
Well, I think that's also a great mindset shift, and it's a great perspective. That a lot of what you were describing seems so expensive to people, or again, it's out of reach, or we can't do it, or those are luxuries, or whatever they might be. But if you peel it back, they've all got the phone, they've all got the Apple Watch, they're all drinking, everywhere. They're going, all of these other things. If you took that and you said, look, here's what you could invest that money in terms of yourself, and here's the ROI you would get, or even ROL, return on life.
It's
Look
huge.
at the difference. It's huge. I mean,
Yeah,
that's 20 grand right there.
it's
I mean,
huge.
we're in like March, heading into April, right now. I had a couple questions. You mentioned earlier that you got divorced
Yeah,
and you've gotten remarried.
yeah.
How old were you when you got divorced? And then how old were you when you got remarried?
I'm divorced twice. The first divorce was I was 46. Second, I was 52. Yeah.
How do you find, or I guess, like, how do you date? How do you find, I guess,
I,
your in middle age? Again, I've
I
been
didn't.
married
I,
23 years,
I
25 years.
didn't. No, I did. I literally didn't. I went from one marriage and met somebody and got deep into a relationship. And then when my second wife and I split up, while we were split up, my current wife just sent me a note and said, "Hey, I saw you recently separated. I'm just out of a relationship. You want to get together?" And so we got together, and she's like, "Oh, you're not fucking ready." And like 3 months later, we were dating. I didn't date. I just went from one into the next, and I somehow got lucky. I
Mm.
feel like I'm lucky.
Is that advisable? I get to other
I
guys.
don't know. Fuck, it was my journey.
I don't know either. I'm just.
It's my journey. I don't know. I'm happy. I'm 6 years into a relationship, and I'm happy, and I'm having the best relationship of my life. And I don't know if it's advisable or not. It's just my journey.
What constitutes a great relationship?
Honesty, integrity, growth, doing cool shit together. Um, yeah, being able to be vulnerable, having each other's back, you know, caring about the other person.
If you're unhappy, though, I advise. There are guys that are staying in unhappy relationships and poor relationships, just like we talked about earlier, and they stayed in poor jobs,
Yeah.
overall. What's your advice, having been through this now a couple of times?
I think you really have to sit down with your partner and say, look, I'm not happy. And these are the things that we need to work on, or I think we need to work on. How do you feel about it? And have that discussion and realize that happiness is either going to come through growing through that or leaving and growing through it in a different way. But to stay in something is stupid. I heard a comedian years ago and he was talking about Ethiopia and he said, everybody in Ethiopia is starving. He goes, nothing fucking grows. It's a desert. Go somewhere where food grows. If you're going to be homeless, don't do it in Seattle where it rains every day. Go be homeless in San Diego where at least it's sunny. If you're going to live life, at least try to do it where you're growing. So you need to have that discussion. But if you're having the discussion with yourself in your head constantly and you're just drinking it away or ignoring it, go have the discussion with the person, because they're not happy either. So
Mm.
so either work to change it or change it.
Okay, last question. Corporate culture.
Yeah.
Because you've been in companies, you've been the CEO, you've been the COO, you work with all these COOs, now. What's your take on corporate culture? How do you see it? It's such a big buzzword
Yeah,
now.
so I'm very well known globally for helping companies have amazing company cultures. I've been paid to speak in 28 countries on building great company cultures. Company culture is not the free massages and the perks and the free lunches. Those are perks. Culture is an alignment with vivid vision. It's an alignment with core values. It's an alignment with a BHAG, and it's an alignment with core purpose. When everybody is aligned with those four things, they're like the corners of your jigsaw puzzle. That's where culture emerges, right? So it's a company. So most companies have a mission statement. It's bullshit. No one's aligned with it. Nobody believes in it. Most companies don't really believe their core values. They don't hire based on them. They don't fire based on them. So you're not aligned with that. Most companies don't have anything inspiring that they're driving towards. So most companies' cultures aren't even nice beige. They're kind of boring beige, right? But you also don't have to work there, right? You can go choose to work with better companies. Half of the companies are better and half the companies are worse. At least be in the best half.
And there it is. I think that there's a lot of it in this, to that effect. I think there's this belief that, our companies don't care about us, or we're only part of the culture as long as we're producing and we're performing, in there. And as you're saying, how do you buy in? Because it's not just the Patagonia with the company logo, on it. It's got to be something. It's got to be something more. And I think, I hear a lot of guys that are just kind of hanging on because they don't believe in where they are. Is that the time you got to get out?
Yeah. I mean, it's not my world. I just don't spend time with those people, right? Like the government's always hiring. The post office is always hiring. Like I don't hang with those people. I've chosen, like you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your mindset is, your health is, your weight is, your hobbies are. Like go start spending time with people doing the other stuff. If you're feeling trapped, no one's handcuffing you there.
There it is. Read your vivid vision, write your own vivid vision, and change your path.
Yeah.
Cameron Herold, thank you so much for joining me today on the Midlife Male podcast. This was great. I really, really appreciate your time and your insight on everything. And thank you, honestly, for changing my life. The book really did. And your message and the way that you're living and leading by example has really been the inspiration for what's been happening with Midlife Male. So thank you very, very much.
You're so welcome, Greg. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You got it. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thanks so much for listening. If you can leave us a review on Spotify or Apple, that would mean so much to us and really help us out. Also, be sure to subscribe and check us out on YouTube at Midlife Male. We'll see you next time.